This project looked at the county's approaches and policies related to space planning, and we focused on office spaces, such as most of the space in the Chinook and King Street Center buildings. The key takeaways from our report include that the county has costly space decisions on the horizon, with draft estimates for the Civic Campus Initiative at over $3 billion. However, the county is not meeting foundational space planning best practices to track information that could better inform those decisions and ensure spaces meet the county's needs. Thirdly, the methodologies that are currently in use could lead to building more space than is needed, which would mean unnecessary capital and long-term operation and maintenance costs. On this slide, we're showing the range of space planning decisions in terms of size and cost. On the left, we see an example of a relatively small cost decision, such as the reconfiguration of office space, or as shown here, the construction of the customer service center, which cost about $2.8 million. Other decisions are more costly, such as the purchasing of an existing building. For example, the Dexter Horton building shown here in the middle, which the county recently purchased for $36.6 million to meet the needs of the Department of Public Defense. And on the right, you see an early mock-up of part of the Civic Campus Initiative, which would include remodeling of existing county buildings downtown and constructing a new campus outside of downtown, with draft estimates at over $3.4 billion for the two-campus approach described in the project strategic plan that was just published. We looked at state, federal, industry, and county guidelines about how to make space planning decisions, and we identified key metrics that organizations should track to determine their space needs. These metrics also help ensure space planning decisions are cost-effective and optimize the use of space. These include maintaining a detailed and updated inventory of existing spaces. This is essentially tracking what you have, what its capacity is, and what condition it's in. Second, occupancy information, such as which agencies are assigned to which spaces and how workspaces are meant to be used. For example, are spaces dedicated to individual employees, or are they available for daily drop-in use, or are they vacant? Utilization of space, which demonstrates whether space is being used as intended by tracking actual frequency of use, where occupancy information shows you what is planned for space, utilization shows you what is actually happening. And lastly, best practices include creating standards that lay out an organization's benchmark for utilization and occupancy rates. And this helps ensure that office space is being used efficiently. Now we're going to talk through each of these metrics, why they are important, and how the county can improve its use of them. First, we're going to talk about the need for a detailed and up-to-date inventory of county spaces. Both King County Code and the county's Real Asset Management Plan, or RAMP, specify that FMD is responsible for inventorying the county's real property, with the goal that the information be comprehensive and readily accessible to support strategic planning and decision-making. However, FMD has not yet been able to implement an IT system to track comprehensive and detailed information about county spaces. Without such a system, floor plan and facility information is tracked in a number of different side systems, and the quality of data varies by building and by floor. And as a result, FMD's primary source of detailed information about county-owned spaces is institutional knowledge. There are also reliability issues with occupancy data, and just a reminder, this is essentially the planned use of space. The county's PeopleSoft system can track assigned work locations, but the Department of Human Resources reported to us that tracking assigned work locations is the responsibility of agency HR staff. There is no mandate for this information to be kept up to date, and it is not consistently updated. For example, we found that PeopleSoft still listed the admin building as the work location for a few hundred staff members who had moved out as the building was closing. Without reliable and comprehensive inventory and occupancy information, it is difficult for the county to identify gaps between current facilities and future needs. It's difficult to know how space is being used and to identify areas where it could be used more effectively. As examples, here on the slide, we have photos we took of workspaces in Chinook, where actual usage varies from how space was designed to be used. These are spaces designed to be cubicles or offices that are instead vacant or being used as storage. We have two recommendations in this area. One, for FMD to develop and implement a process to maintain detailed and comprehensive information about county spaces. And two, for FMD to work with the Department of Human Resources to ensure agencies update PeopleSoft and track assigned work locations accurately.
As we touched on before, utilization tracks the number of people who are actually using the space, which helps you identify overcrowding and underutilization and see trends in space use over time. This data can then be used to evaluate agency space requests. For example, if an agency requests additional space, you can see how often they use their current workspaces to determine if the request is reasonable. And through this project, we found that FMD does not currently track utilization. Since FMD does not track utilization, as part of this project, we undertook an analysis to get a sense of how buildings are currently being utilized by looking at badge swipe data that is collected each time someone uses a badge on a door or an elevator access panel. We paired badge swipe data from March through June of 2024 and combined it with counts of workstations from site visits we did in July. Based upon this analysis, we estimate that the maximum utilization of buildings during that period was below 50%, and that is the maximum. On average, there are enough staff on site to use only about 1 out of every 4 available workstations. Utilization data can also be used to verify estimates and inform planning for future facilities. For example, in the Civic Campus Strategic Plan, the consultant relied on self-reported attendance data to forecast future space needs. Those forecasts are the gray bars here. We looked at badge swipe data for non-holiday weekdays and found that actual attendance, shown with the blue-orange bar, can vary significantly from what is being used for planning efforts. Now, we weren't able to look at all agencies because the data provided by the ID Access Office did not cover the whole downtown campus, but just by looking at these 8 agencies, we estimate that the consultant's forecast for office space needs could be over 20% higher than what is actually needed. Therefore, using actual card swipe data could help King County more accurately predict future space needs and prevent oversizing of future facilities. As a result, in the report, we make 2 recommendations around utilization. First, that FMD should develop and implement an approach to analyzing badge swipe and other available data to estimate utilization of county spaces. And second, that FMD regularly repeat this methodology in a way that allows it to evaluate agency space requests and inform space planning decisions. Lastly, we're going to talk about how standards can help inform space planning decisions. Here, standards refers to what a good use of space looks like, with guidelines such as how many square feet per employee or how often the space is used. King County gets to set their own standards, which FMD did in the 2019 ramp. However, those standards have been updated since the pandemic dramatically changed working conditions. And because the ramp hasn't been updated with new standards that reflect current operating procedures, there's no county target against which to measure current occupancy or utilization levels. Without standards, it is difficult to identify underperforming spaces where staff could potentially be consolidated or to maximize the cost effectiveness of future facility investments. And as things are continually changing, standards can help policymakers see the impact of staffing decisions on space needs. For example, more space will likely be required if staff come into the office 3 days a week rather than 2. To give you an example of standards, we can look to Washington State, which has faced similar changes in working conditions. The State Office of Financial Management, or OFM, has developed an 80% utilization standards for both office spaces and conference rooms, and requires staff to be in the office at least 60% of the time to have a dedicated workspace. OFM pairs analyses of key card data with regular agency updates on employee location and on-site schedules to determine utilization rates. Agencies are then asked to reduce square footage in leased and owned buildings based upon actual in-office use. We make 2 recommendations around standards. First, that FMD develop, document, and communicate to county agencies space occupancy and utilization standards, and then FMD then use these standards to inform short and long-term planning decisions. To recap, our key takeaways include that the county is facing big space decisions which could cost over $3 billion. However, the county is not meeting foundational best practices in space planning, which would better inform those decisions, and the processes currently in use could result in the county building more space than needed, leading to unnecessary short-term capital and long-term operations and maintenance costs. A copy of the full report is available online. Thank you.